Hello everyone and welcome to my video lecture series. Okay, so today we are going to start with a new chapter which is called as plant water relations. Okay, so let me write down the heading over here. Okay, so this is our today's topic, and so let us start off. So water plays a very important role, okay, in all the biological organisms life, especially plants. Okay, so plants get a variety of substances from their environment. For example, plants get oxygen, they get carbon dioxide, these are the gases which are present. Then plants get water from the environment, plants get minerals from the environment, plants get sunlight from the environment. So all these things, okay, many such things are obtained by the plant. So I will write these things down. So environment is basically providing the plants with which things? Sunlight plus water plus minerals plus gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide. Correct, all these things are obtained by the plants from the environment. However, for the purpose of productivity, which of these factors is the most important? Now what is the meaning of productivity? So productivity is basically photosynthesis. Okay, so productivity is when the plant performs photosynthesis to produce carbohydrates, that is called as productivity. So for productivity, which of these factors is the most important? The most important factor for productivity is water. Please remember this. Okay, so water is very important for the sake of productivity, and it is the single most important factor which will control the rate of productivity or rate of photosynthesis. Okay, so that is why in this chapter initially we are going to study about how water plays a very important plant part in the productivity of plants. Okay, is this clear? Now the other very important thing is that plants are made up of water mostly. Okay, so if you have a look at the cells, okay, so the cell or the tissue of plants, they are made up of mostly water. So you can say that 90 to 95% of a cell or tissue is made up of water. Okay, so it basically helps in two things. It helps in turgidity. What is the meaning of turgidity? Turgidity is the amount of water content in the cell, and because of the turgidity, it helps in maintaining the shape of the cell. Okay, so it helps in maintaining the turgidity, it helps in maintaining the shape of the cell, and that is why the water is very important. Okay, obviously it is a very important solvent also. Most of the minerals are dissolved in water, so it acts as a great solvent. Okay, so when the roots absorb water, along with that the dissolved minerals will also be absorbed. So that is why we can say that water can be called as elixir of life. I will write it down: elixir of life. Now what is the meaning of elixir? So elixir is something which will keep you it will prolong your life, something which is very important to your life. For example, oxygen can also be called as elixir of life for us. Similarly, for plants, for the purpose of productivity, water is very important, and that is why it is called as elixir of life. I hope this is clear. Okay, so now the next part is going to be about the properties of water. Okay, the properties of water, because of which they are biologically very important. Okay, so we are going to learn about the properties. This was just a brief introduction to the chapter. So here we have basically started with the part how water is very important compared to all the other factors that the environment provides. Okay, and how it is the elixir of life. All right, so let's start with the first part, that is called as properties of water. So I'm going to rub this off. Okay, there are basically going to be 6 properties which you have to remember. Okay, so let us start with the part of properties of water. Okay, now we are only going to talk about the properties which are important for plants and other organisms. We are not going to talk about the other properties which are not important. Okay, so the first property which is very important for plants and other living organisms is that water is liquid at room temperature. This is very important property. Okay, because most of the substances at room temperature, they are solid and they become liquid when they are heated, and again when they are cooled they become solid. But water is not like that. Water at room temperature is liquid. So why is it a very important property? Because it becomes the best solvent for most of the solutes. So I am writing it down in the bracket over here. It becomes the best solvent. Okay, so since it is liquid, most of the solutes will be able to dissolve in the water, and because the solutes are able to dissolve in the water, when the roots absorb that water, the minerals are also entering the plant. Okay, so this is the first property of water which is very important for the plants or all the biological organisms. Coming to the second property, water is basically an inert organic compound. So I will write it down over here. Inert inert inorganic compound. What is the meaning of inert inorganic compound? So inert inorganic compound means that water by itself will not react with other substances. A substance which is not reactive is called as inert. Okay, so water itself will not react with other substances. Also it is an inorganic compound, and also please remember, when the water is in its purest form, pure water is having neutral pH. So I will write down over here. Okay, pure water has neutral pH. So all these factors are very important for water being a transportation agent. See, first of all, it is not reactive. Okay, second, it is an inorganic compound. It is not an organic compound which will undergo decomposition. Okay, normally organic compounds undergo decomposition, but water will not undergo decomposition. Next thing is, it is having neutral pH, so it is neither acidic nor it is basic. Are you getting my point? And because of all these points, it becomes an excellent carrier, or it becomes an excellent transporting agent. Transporting agent for what? Transporting agent for many minerals, many ions which are present in the soil. Are you getting this point? So this is the second important property of water which helps the plants. Coming to the third property, which is very important for the plants, is that water is the best liquid medium for all the biochemical reactions which are occurring in the body. All the metabolism reactions which are occurring, they require an aqueous or a liquid medium, and for that the best liquid is water. Why is it the best liquid? Because I have already told you, it is inert. Okay, so I will write down over here, best liquid for biochemical reactions. Is this clear? So third point is, all the biochemical reactions, they prefer water as the liquid medium, and hence also it is very important. Any reaction, be it the reaction of respiration or be it the reactions of photosynthesis, all these are occurring in presence of water. So that is why it is very important. Is this clear? Next point is going to be that water is very important for photosynthesis. So if you know the photosynthesis reaction, then you know that without water you cannot have photosynthesis. So that is the next point. For plants, water plays an indispensable part. What is the meaning of indispensable? Something which cannot be replaced. Okay, so we have finished with 4 points over here. Is this clear? Are these points clear? The next point is going to be about 3 physical properties of water. Okay, I will write down all these properties, and I'm going to write them down with a different color so that I can highlight them. Okay, so there are 3 physical properties which I'm going to write down over here. The first is called as specific heat. Second is called as heat of fusion, and third is called as heat of vaporization. So there are three physical terminologies which I have written down: specific heat of water, heat of fusion of water, and heat of vaporization of water. Now water has all these three values which are very very high. So you can say that water has a high specific heat, water has a high heat of fusion, and water has a high heat of vaporization. And because of all these three quantities being at a very very high value, in the case of water, water acts as a thermal buffer. Okay, so I will write down high specific heat, high heat of fusion, high heat of vaporization, and because of that water acts as a thermal buffer. Now what do you understand by the term thermal buffer? See, buffer means a substance which doesn't easily undergo a change in pH, but when I am writing thermal buffer, that means it is a substance which doesn't easily undergo a change in temperature. Okay, now what is specific heat? See, basically specific heat is the amount of energy supplied in the form of heat to a substance so that that energy causes a unit rise in temperature of that substance. That is called as specific heat. What is called as heat of vaporization? Heat of vaporization is the amount of heat supplied so that a unit quantity of liquid converts into unit quantity of vapor. Very simple, self-explanatory term. Okay, what is the meaning of heat of fusion? Heat of fusion is the heat energy which is supplied, which converts a unit amount of solid into a unit amount of liquid without both of them having a change in temperature. So I am just telling you what are the meaning of these three words. It is not important from your exam point of view. However, these three terms we have in the book, so I am explaining. So all these three energy values, they are very very high in the case of water, and because of that it can resist an easy change in temperature, so it will become a thermal buffer. Is this clear? So this is our fifth point, that water acts as a thermal buffer because of very very high specific heat, very very high heat of fusion, and very high heat of vaporization. The last factor or the last property of water which is very very important is the property of adhesion, cohesion, and surface tension. All right, so water molecules have very high adhesive forces, they have very high cohesive forces, and they have a very high surface tension, right? What is the meaning of adhesive forces? What is the meaning of cohesive forces? So normally many people have a problem in distinguishing between adhesion and cohesion. See, both of these words or both these terminologies are related to attraction. I will give you the best example. Okay, so suppose if over here I draw a test tube. Okay, this is the test tube. All right, and inside the test tube there is water which is present. Okay, this is the water which is present. Now the forces of attraction between the glass molecules. Okay, the test tube is made up of glass, so there are glass molecules. So forces of attraction between the glass molecules and the water molecules, those forces are called as adhesive forces, whereas the forces of attraction within the water molecules itself is called as cohesive forces. So you can say that adhesive forces are the forces of attraction between two different molecules. So forces of attraction between glass and water, so the water is sticking to the surface of glass because of adhesive forces, whereas the water molecules are sticking to each other because of cohesive forces. Is this clear? So you can say that cohesive force is a force between two same molecules, adhesive force is a force between two different molecules. Simple. Surface tension, everybody knows surface tension is the phenomena of a liquid to reduce the surface area in that possible space, that is called as surface tension. So all these three values are also very very high in case of water, and because of that what happens is there is something which is called as capillary action. Okay, and this capillary action is very important for the roots. Okay, so roots get most of the water which is in the form of capillary water. I will explain what is capillary water, and for capillary water to be absorbed, capillary action should be there. Okay, so what is capillary action? It is very simple. You take a very very thin glass tube. Okay, you dip in water, what will happen is the water will rise through that capillary. That is because of adhesive forces, cohesive forces, and also because of surface tension of water. You must have learned this in physics. So the same thing happens in soil. We will learn about it, and this is the last property of water, which is very important. So are these 6 properties of water clear? Okay, let us just go through these properties once again. The first property, which is very important biologically, or which is very important for plants, is that it is liquid at room temperature. Okay, so it is the best solvent. Then the next property which is there is that it is an inert organic compound. Okay, and it is neutral at neutral, it is having neutral pH when it is exactly in its purest form, so it does not react with other substances, and that is why it is excellent for transporting materials, minerals, ions, all those things. Third is it is the best liquid for biochemical reactions which are occurring inside the body. Fourth is it is very important for photosynthesis. Fifth is it is having 3 physical properties which are very high. Water is having a high heat of vaporization, high heat of fusion, and high specific heat. Because of that, it behaves like an excellent thermal buffer. Please remember to write down thermal buffer. Just don't write down buffer plain. Okay, and last property is it is having very high adhesive forces, cohesive forces, and surface tension, because of which there is capillary action, which is very important for the roots to get water. Is this clear? So are these properties done? Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to move with the next part. Okay, and the next part is going to be the absorption organ which is present in the plants, which is the organ which basically absorbs water. So everybody knows the absorption organs in plants are called as roots. So we are going to study about the root. Okay, we are going to study about the structure of a root in the case of plant. So the next part is going to be structure of a typical root. Now, all this part that I am going to take in today's lecture, it is a very basic part. Okay, and it is going to be very easy from the understanding point of view. Anyway, so what is the function of roots? The function of roots is very simple. It basically absorbs water. Okay, and along with the water, all the dissolved minerals. So I will write down the function. Function of roots is basically absorbing water plus the dissolved minerals into the plant. Okay, so this is in the case of terrestrial or land dwelling plants. Now there are some other plants which are also called as epiphytes. I will write down over here. Does anybody know what are epiphytes? Okay, so if you have forgotten, epiphytes are basically the plants which grow on other trees. Okay, so what happens is epiphytes are very small plants which grow on the branches of other trees. However, they are not parasitic. They will not harm the tree on which they are growing. Okay, and so what I will do is I will just draw a simple diagram over here. Just imagine this is a tree, all right, and these are the branches of that tree, correct? And over here I am going to draw an epiphyte. I am going to use green color. So just imagine this green colored plant which I have grown, it is an epiphyte. So it is growing on another tree. Now you will ask me, why is it growing on another tree? Why is it not growing in the soil itself? Because first of all, epiphytes are very small plants. So if they are growing in the forest, then they will have a very less height. They will have a reduced height. So because of that, what happens is all the tall trees, they will cover it up, and the sunlight will not reach that epiphyte. Since that plant is very short, it will not get the sunlight, because the branches and leaves of all the tall trees, they will form a shade on that plant. So the plant will not get sunlight and it will die. So because of that, what happens is epiphytes, when they reproduce asexually, the spores travel by air and the spores get deposited on the branches of other trees, and there they germinate to give rise to a new plant, and that is why epiphytes are plants which grow on other trees. Is this clear? So now you will ask me, where will they get water from? So very simple, these epiphytes, they have roots which are hanging. Okay, and these roots are called as aerial roots. What is the meaning of aerial roots? Aerial roots are the roots which are not present in soil, but they are hanging. And how do these aerial roots collect water? So basically these aerial roots, they collect moisture from the air, or you can say they absorb the water vapor which is present in the air. You must have seen aerial roots. Okay, so many of the trees have aerial roots. Even if you have plants at your place, if you have plants in your home, then you can see that small aerial roots arise from the stem. Why is that happening? So that they can accumulate water vapor from the air also. So anyway, epiphytes are plants which grow on other trees. Okay, and they have aerial roots, and these aerial roots absorb water. Is this clear? Please remember, epiphytes are not parasitic. They will not harm the plant on which they are growing. Okay, and what happens is, because they are growing on tall trees, they will easily get sunlight also. Anyway, so how are these epiphytes absorbing moisture from the air? So epiphytes, they have a specialized tissue present in their aerial roots which is called as velament tissue. Now this is very important for everybody to remember. Velament tissue. This velament tissue is like a sponge. Everybody knows what a sponge is. Sponge can absorb and retain a large quantity of water. So this velament tissue is present in the aerial roots of epiphytes. So what it does is, it basically absorbs all the water vapor and it holds it, and this can be used by the plant. So please remember, epiphytes have velament tissue, and the regular terrestrial plants, they don't need that. They will absorb the water from the soil. Okay, so now what we are going to study is, we are going to study the structure of a typical root. Okay, we have written the heading structure of a typical root. We are going to start that right now. So what I am going to do is, on the left hand side, I am going to draw the structure of a typical root. I am going to rub this off. Okay, so basically everybody knows that a root is triangular structure. So what I am going to do is, I am going to just draw the structure over here. All right, this is the structure. Now please remember the tip of the root. Okay, the sharp end of the root, it is also called as the apex. Now normally apex is the region which is present towards the top, and base is the region which is present towards the bottom. But in the case of roots, please remember, it is the opposite. Apex is the plant part of the root which grows deep under the soil, and base is the part which is fixed in the soil. Please remember. Okay, so I can say that this part of the root is the base, and this part of the root is the apex. Is this clear? Please remember this. Now coming to parts of the root. So the apex of the root is covered by a protective region which is called as the root cap. So I am going to use a yellow color, and I am going to cover this area up. Okay, and if you can see over here, I have drawn a structure which is basically protecting the tip of the root. Why do you need to protect the tip of the root? Just imagine the root, it is growing downwards in the soil. Okay, and obviously the soil is present, so it is going to give resistance. So the root is going to rub. There is going to be friction between the growing root and the soil, and because of that, the root tip can get damaged. So who is protecting the root tip? This root cap. Okay, so this structure, so I will rub this apex and base off. This structure is called as the root cap. Okay, then the region which is present above the root cap, which I am going to mark in blue, this region is called as the meristematic region. Now what is the meaning of meristematic region? Meristematic region is the region which is made up of meristematic cells. Meristematic cells are the cells which are continuously dividing cells. Okay, they will keep on undergoing mitosis, they will keep on dividing. Okay, so the region which is present above the root cap is called as meristematic region, which is made up of meristematic tissue, made up of meristematic cells, which is a continuously growing region. Okay, then above the meristematic region, so I think we will need slightly more space. Okay, anyway, above the meristematic region is the region called as region of elongation, which I am showing in green color. Okay, so I will write down zone of elongation, or you can write down region of elongation or elongation zone. What do you mean by elongation? Elongation means vertical growth. See, there are two kinds of growth happening. One is the growth which is occurring because of increase in length, that is downward direction, and other is the secondary growth which is occurring because of increase in thickness, which is sideways. So everybody knows increase in secondary growth is because of cambium, and increase in vertical growth or primary growth is because of the zone of elongation. Please remember, so zone of elongation is the region which will increase in length, so it will increase the overall length of the root. All these things are not given in the book, however, since you have these parts, it is better if you understand. Then the region above the zone of elongation is probably the most important region in the root, okay, and that region is called as the root hair region or the root hair zone. So that region I am going to show over here, this orange part which I have shown. Now this region is very important because there are unicellular substances which are growing from this region which are called as the root hair. Okay, so I am drawing over here this hair like structures which are present, okay, and these are called as root hair. So root hair help in absorption of water and also the dissolved materials. Okay, so I hope you are getting this part, and this region is called as the root hair zone, and these structures are called as the root hair. These are unicellular structures. We are going to study about the root hair after this part. Okay, so see, right now we have studied about the 4 different parts. First is root cap, second is meristematic region, third is elongation region, fourth is region of root hair which helps in absorption of water, and the base of the root or the part which is present just above the stem, just below the stem, sorry, and which is the strongest part of the root which anchors the plant inside the soil. So if this is the soil, this layer, then this region which is present, okay, so I will use a different color, I think I will use this color, this region which is present, this is called as the maturation zone. Now maturation zone is very important because the cells in this area, they have the capability to divide and form any other cells of the root, so they are called as maturation zone, and this is the strongest part of the root which holds the plant in the position. So when we say that the roots are very important if fixing the plant, which region is very important? It is the maturation zone. So now in your book they have given that the root is made up of 4 important regions. The 4 regions are the meristematic region, elongation region, root hair region, and maturation region. Root cap is not called as a region, it is just a protection in the case of roots. So I hope all these 4 parts are clear, and these are the 4 parts of a typical root which is present in terrestrial plants. Please remember this. In the case of epiphytic plants, a specialized spongy tissue will be present called as velamen, which absorbs the moisture from the air. Is this diagram clear? Okay, so this is the structure of a typical root. Now one more additional thing I will like to tell is the root hair zone which is present. Okay, this root hair zone is made up of cells which are called as epiblema cells. I will write it down over here in capital, epiblema. Okay, and these are type of epidermal cells. Now what is the meaning of epidermal cells? Epidermal means cells which are present on the outside. Okay, so if you see the surface of root and on the surface the cells which are present, they are called epidermal. Whereas if you go inside towards the interior of the root, then the cells which are present are called endo. Endo is inside, epi is outside. So these cells which are present, okay, so I will highlight the cells over here. The cells which are present on the surface, these cells are called as epidermal cells, and they are given a special name which is called as epiblema. So very important word to remember. And these epiblema cells, they give rise to root hair. Is this clear? Okay, you can say that the same epiblema cell is modified to give rise to a root hair. So root hair are formed from which cells? They are formed from epiblema cells. What are epiblema cells? Epiblema cells are the cells which are present on the surface of the root hair zone. Is this clear? So with that we have finished the structure of a typical root. The next part is going to be, we have to study the structure of root hair. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub all of these off and we are going to start with root hair. So I hope this is clear. these four parts of a typical root, they are very, very important. Okay, please remember the four regions. Meristematic region, which has meristematic cells, which is a continuously dividing region. Second region is called as region of elongation or elongation zone, which helps in vertical growth or the primary growth of the root. Third region is the region of root hair or the root hair zone, which is responsible for absorption of water and dissolved minerals. So only this root hair zone will absorb water. The other regions are not going to absorb water. And root hair is formed from epiblema cells, which are the surface cells of the root. And above that is the region called as the maturation zone, okay, which is the most strongest point of the root, which anchors the plant inside the soil. And these cells have the capability to divide into any other cells of the root. Is this clear? Okay, so let us start with the next part, which is about structure of the root hair. So I'm going to rub everything off. All right, so the next part is going to be structure of root hair. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a diagram which will explain the root hair. If you understand the diagram, everything is going to be easy. So now on the left hand side, again let me come to the structure of the root. So this was the structure that we had drawn, correct? And approximately over here, this was the region which was called as region of root hair, correct? It was having all the root hairs. I'm not going to draw other parts. Now this same region, now this root hair, if I want to magnify it, okay, then what happens is these root hairs are basically made up of single cells called epiblema. So if I want to draw over here, I can show that this is one epiblema cell, this is other epiblema cell, another one, and the third one I am going to modify it as a root hair. So the third epiblema cell is like this. Okay, so you can see that the same cell is getting elongated or extended and it is forming the root hair. Now what is the structure of the root hair? Please pay attention now. So the each cell, so this entire cell is called as epiblema cell, and that same cell is forming the root hair. Now first of all, what is the length of a single root hair? The length of a single root hair is somewhere between 1 millimeter to 10 millimeter in length. Please remember, this is the length of a single root hair. These root hairs which I have drawn, they are 1 millimeter to 10 millimeter in length. Also, all these root hairs, a single root hair is unicellular. So a single root hair is made up of only one cell and it is called as epiblema cell. Now what is the structure? So if you see the structure, then this epiblema cell is basically made up of two cell walls. There are two layers of cell wall. So what I am going to do is I am going to draw another layer of cell wall, okay, and that I am going to show with blue color. So orange layer is the outer cell wall. Then after the orange layer I am going to draw another cell wall which is in blue color, okay. So over here I am drawing the second layer of cell wall. Now the first or the outermost layer of cell wall, which is orange in color, it is made up of pectin. The inner cell wall, it is made up of a material which is called as cellulose. So everybody knows that plant cell wall is made up of cellulose. So there are two layers of cell wall. Again you will ask why? Because cell wall is protective in function. The root is already growing through the soil, so there is a lot of friction. So if there are two layers of cell wall, the cell will get more protection, it will not break easily. Okay, so pectin outer, inner cellulose, two layers of cell wall. Inside the cell wall will be present what? Obviously the plasma membrane or the cell membrane will be present, everybody knows. Inside the cell membrane will be present cytoplasm. However, the cytoplasm is very, very less in quantity. And inside the cytoplasm is present one of the most important parts. Okay, so I am going to draw it. I am going to use a green color, and the part which is present inside it is called as a central vacuole. Vacuole everybody knows. So this green colored structure which I am drawing over here, this is called as the central vacuole. It is the storage area. Okay, so the central vacuole is very, very large in size. It occupies most of the place inside the epiblema cell, and obviously surrounding the central vacuole There will be other parts. For example, there will be a nucleus which is present, so I am drawing a nucleus over here. Okay, and apart from the nucleus there will be mitochondria cells which will be present. Mitochondria are basically giving energy, so these dotted structures which I am drawing, you can call them as mitochondria. So I will just label it over here. This is mitochondria. All right, and the leftover space which is there, that is where the cytoplasm is present. Okay, so cytoplasm is not having a large space. Most of the space inside the cell is taken by the central vacuole. So is this structure of a root hair clear? This is a single root hair. Single root hair is made up of which cells? It is made up of epidermal cells which are present on the surface, which are also called as epiblema cell. Okay, very important to know this word. What is the root hair? A root hair is a unicellular structure made up of a single cell. Okay. Then what is the length? Approximately between 1 millimeter to 10 millimeter in length. Okay. So you can say that this length is approximately between 1 millimeter to 10 millimeters. Also please remember, it is colorless. The root hair is colorless. Okay, and it is short lived. Okay, there is a word given in your book, and that word I will write down over here. The word is ephemeral. What is the meaning of ephemeral? Ephemeral means it is short lived. See, it is made up of a single cell, so whenever the root is growing, obviously it will get damaged easily. Although it is having two cell walls, it will get damaged, so it is having a very short life. But what will happen is, once one root hair dies, another epiblema cell will give rise to a new root hair. Okay, so root hairs will be continuously produced, but the life of a root hair is very short, and that is ephemeral. Ephemeral means having a very short life. So I am writing down over here, very short life. That means it is ephemeral. It is colorless. Okay, and it is very small and microscopic. So I hope this structure of a root hair is clear. Okay, please remember the two layer of cell walls which are present. Okay, they are freely permeable to water and other substances, so the cell wall will not stop anything from going inside the cell. However, the plasma membrane, it is selectively permeable, so only the things which the cell needs, they will be allowed inside the plasma membrane. So cell wall is freely permeable, so pectin and cellulose will allow anything to go inside the cell. However, the plasma membrane, it is selectively permeable. It will only allow things which are important for the cell to go inside the cytoplasm. So I hope this structure is clear. Okay, central vacuole plays a very important part in the area. It is the biggest region of the root hair. I hope this is clear. So with that, we have completed with root hair. What is the function of root hair? Absorption of water and the dissolved minerals. Clear. Now we come to the last part of our today's lecture. Okay, and that part is going to be about the types of water which are present inside the soil. Okay, so I am again going to rub this off. Okay, there are basically 4 different types of water which are present in the soil, or you can say groundwater. Okay, types of water in the ground. Okay, now again, this is an important part. Questions can be asked on this part, so please pay attention. Now there are basically 4 main types of water which are present in the ground, or which are present in the soil. Okay, I will just write down the 4 types, and then I will tell you out of these 4 types which water is available to the plant. Okay, so it is not that all the water that goes in the soil or which goes in the ground, it is available to plants. No, it is not like that. Anyway, coming to the 4 types of water which are present, the first type of water which is present, it is called as gravitational water. This is the first type of water present. I will explain all the types. The second type of water which is present is called as hygroscopic water. Third type of water which is present, it is called as combined water. And the last type, we have already discussed about it, and that is called as the capillary water. So here you will come to know what exactly is capillary water. So basically the groundwater can be of four types. First is gravitational water, second is hygroscopic water, third is combined water, and fourth is capillary water. Now out of these four sources, which one do you think can the plants take? Which of these sources of water can be absorbed by the roots of the plant? So out of these only one of them can be absorbed by the plant. Three sources are not available to the plant. Which of them is available? The answer is capillary water. So that is why over here I am going to just put this in a box. Only the capillary water is available for absorption. So the plants can absorb only this capillary water. So we are going to see why all the other sources cannot be available to the plant. Let us come to the first one, which is gravitational water. What is gravitational water? So what happens is, when the water falls on the soil, top layer of the soil, it can be rainwater, it can be from lakes, rivers, anything. What happens is, because of the gravitational force, that water percolates inside the soil, correct? Because of the gravitational pull, it will move downwards in the soil, and what happens is, this gravitational water goes deep inside the earth, and the roots do not grow so deep. So because of that, what happens is, this gravitational water is not available to the plants, because the roots cannot grow. See, the roots also grow deeply inside the soil, but this gravitational water goes even further. So this is not available to the plants, so the roots cannot absorb the gravitational water. So this source is not available. Coming to hygroscopic water, hygroscopic means any substance which can absorb water, it is called as hygroscopic. For example, if you have seen salt, the salt that we eat, sodium chloride, table salt, if you keep that salt open, okay, and if you keep it for a day or two, what will happen is, you will see that it will become liquidy. Why? Because the salt molecules, they basically absorb water vapor from the air and they imbibe water. Because of that, they become liquidy. So hygroscopic water is the water which is absorbed by very fine particles of soil. See, soil particles, some of them are big, some of them are very small. So what happens is, these small soil particles, very fine, tiny particles, they absorb water. So then now this water is not available for plants, because it is already been absorbed by the soil. Are you getting this? So the hygroscopic water is absorbed by the soil, and the soil will have the water in it. So this water is again not available to the plants. Third type of water is combined water. What is the meaning of combined water? Combined water is basically combining with different elements, and it is forming hydrated oxides. I will write down over here. This is basically forming hydrated oxides. Now what do you mean by hydrated oxides? They are basically oxides of a compound which are having water. For example, aluminium will form oxides because of that water. Silica, which is present in the soil, it will form oxides because of water. So now that water is combined with that element to form a third compound. Are you getting this? For example, aluminium oxide which is hydrated, or silica oxide which is hydrated. Now that water is already combined with the element. So can that water be used by the plants? No, it cannot be. So see, all these three sources of water, they cannot be used by the roots. Gravitational water cannot be used because gravitational water is free, but it is going deep inside the ground till that height the plant roots cannot reach, so roots cannot get that water. Hygroscopic water is already absorbed by the soil inside itself, so plants cannot use that water. Combined water is already combined with the elements to form hydrated oxides, aluminium, silica, manganese, many more. So again, that water cannot be used. So which water is free for the plants? Capillary water. What is capillary water? Very simple. Capillary water is the water which is present in small air spaces in the soil. So for example, over here, if I am drawing this soil particles, all right. So now the space which is present between the soil particles, this empty space, this space is called as capillary space. And inside this capillary space, whatever water is present, why that water will be present? Because of adhesive forces, cohesive forces, and high surface tension. So this water is free, and also it is not going deep inside the ground, and because of that, this water can be absorbed by the roots. Please remember, so suppose if I am showing roots over here, suppose if the roots I am showing green in color, these are the roots of the plant. So you can see that this capillary water is readily available. I will show the capillary water blue in color, this blue dots which I am drawing. So this capillary water is freely available to the roots. This green colored structure are the roots of the plant. Okay, please remember the region around the root. Okay, it is called as rhizosphere. I will write down the word over here, rhizosphere. What is the meaning of rhizosphere? Rhizosphere is basically the microenvironment surrounding the root. Microenvironment is the very small environment. For example, the air which is present surrounding the roots, the capillary water which is present surrounding the roots. Because of capillary action, that water gets trapped over there and the roots can easily absorb. So out of these four sources of water, which source of water can the plants use? The plants can only use capillary water. Gravitational water they cannot use. Hygroscopic and combined water are already absorbed by something else, so they cannot be used. So the only free source of water which the roots of the plants can use, they are called as capillary water. Is this clear? Okay, I hope this part is clear. So today we have completed what all things. First we had an introduction. We discussed about why water is the elixir of life, how it is an important part of cells and tissues, how it helps in maintaining the shape and turgidity of the cell. Then we talked about the 6 properties of water which are important for plants, right? Then we talked about the absorbing organ which is root. We talked about the velamen tissue which is present in the aerial roots of epiphytic plants. We studied the 4 important regions of the root. Alright, do you remember them? First is the meristematic region covered by root cap. Then elongation zone which helps in primary growth of the root. Third is the region of root hair or the root hair zone, which is made up of epiblema cells. Epiblema cells. This word is extremely dodgy or difficult to pronounce. So there might be this issue where when you try to pronounce it, you might just go wrong a bit. Anyway, so region of root hair or root hair zone, and above that the maturation zone, which is the part which is the strongest of the root. Correct. Then we studied about the root hair, how it is made up of 2 cell walls, how it is unicellular. Okay, how it is having a central vacuole, very less cytoplasm, nucleus, mitochondria, all that. They are short-lived, ephemeral, that word I had written down, right? And then finally we studied about the part where the types of groundwater which are available to plants and types of groundwater which is not available to plants, right? And with that we have completed our today's lecture. Okay, and all those people who have not subscribed to my lecture to my channel, please do so. All right, if you like this lecture, please leave a like. You can also leave comments and do share these videos with your friends. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks a lot.